Father, thank you. Thank you for drowning out the nonsense so that we can hear from you. And Father, thank you for the journey that you have each one of us on individually, as families, together as a church. Father, this morning as we break open your word, breathe life into us. It is your living word that restores our souls, Father, and it is well. So, Father, teach us, allow us to have a good time this morning. But, Father, allow us to find relevance and to experience you, not just listen. Because that's where the beauty is. Father, thank you for allowing me to be your voice this morning. And, Father, may every word that I speak point people to you. Let them not pay attention to me. It is in your Son's name that I pray. Amen.
Amen.
So, before I get started, I did want to say this. If you would continue to pray for our little project called the Front Porch Village. We met, a couple of us met on Thursday, and there are some things moving, which I'll fill you guys in a couple of weeks. Super excited about what's going on. I know God's right smack dab in the middle of it. We're working on finalizing a board of directors. We talked a couple of weeks ago about, apathy. And one of the things to overcome apathy is that you have to focus on something, that one thing, and sometimes you've got all these things coming through, and it's hard to focus, and then you just become apathetic. No, I can't change it all, I'm just not going to do it. So it was funny that at that meeting on Thursday, all of these things started coming. Well, we can have this group, this group, this group. And it got to be, my head kind of started to get a little foggy, But I knew that he would answer. And he did. And he did. Once all the little things started coming, he said, this is the group that I want you to focus on. And we agreed to it. And it was a beautiful thing that we've identified the group. Now, I know that when I tell you in a couple of weeks who that group is, there's always going to be people that say, well, why can't you help this group? Why can't you help this group? Da, 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 da. I know that God has called us to help this specific group. So that's the one that we're going to go with. So I'm excited that things are moving and progressing there. And I want to share that excitement with you in a couple of weeks. So I'm just going to kind of leave you on the string right now. But it's all good.
Why about a couple weeks?
Just to make sure you come back to church, I guess.
Yeah, runs.
What's that?
2 weeks. Next month.
Maybe 3 weeks. All right. So, Hebrews 10:36 says this. You need to persevere so that when you have done the will of God, you will receive what He has promised. Little did I know that coming off of the Overcomer series and talking about my birthday and about just being in that place to receive, the blessings that he had, little did I know that story would lead right into this teaching. Yeah. So everything kind of always, if you're intentional about seeking Him out, it always kind of lines out and lines up. And we can talk about it being overcomers and doing all this, but there comes a point in time when we will get tired. We're going to hit a wall. Okay? And that's why Hebrews 10:36 is so prominent and important when it says you need to persevere so that when you have done the will of God, you will receive what He's promised. Persevere means to continue in a course of action, even in the face of difficulty or with little or no prospect of success. We as Christian people, we all tend to hit that wall. Right? But we're going to talk about how to get over that wall this morning. You can't see that, but that says lap 6. So I want everybody to say lap 6.
Lap 6.
Say it with some enthusiasm.
Lap 6.
Lap 6.
Lap 6.
Now I want you to hang on to that because we're going to talk about that in a minute. Joshua, so those of you that have your scripture, if you want to turn to the Old Testament, and the book of Joshua. That's where we're going to park. We're going to stay right there. Joshua chapter 6. Let me read verse 1 through 5 to begin. I'm going to read out of New International Version this week. Yeah. Now Jericho was tightly shut up because of the Israelites. No one went out and no one came in. Then the Lord said to Joshua, "See, I have delivered Jericho into your hands, along with its king and its fighting men. March around the city once with all the armed men. Do this for 6 days. Have 7 priests carry trumpets of ram's horns in front of the ark. On the 7th day, march around the city 7 times, with the priests blowing the trumpets. When you hear them sound a long blast on the trumpets, have all the people give a loud shout. Then the wall of the city will collapse, and the people will go up, every man straight in."
Lap 6.
Lap 6. Lap 6. There are over 3,500 promises from God in Scripture. There are 0 that have been broken. We acknowledge that.
Not as much as we should, I don't think.
Yeah, but we've heard it, right? And we kind of somewhat tend to believe it a little bit. But it's hard to wrap our heads around because we are such a deceitful group of people. And I don't mean to poke, but I mean we are. We're full of sin. But to believe that God can promise us something and not break that promise is almost unfathomable to us. Am I out?
You're out.
Battery's dead? Okay. Take it to you. Take it to
Hey,
you.
while you're doing this and while you're saying
You go do what you got.
deceitful people,
Yeah.
I just want to read this, man. Jeremiah 17:9-10 says that the heart is hopelessly dark and deceitful, a puzzle that no person can figure out. But I, O God, I search the heart and examine the mind. I get to the heart of the human. I get to the root of the things. I treat them as they really are, not as they pretend to be. I don't know, for me, that there's times I pretend to be a lot of things that I'm not. It's good to know that God sees right through all of that BS. You know what I mean? So that's just, I mean, that's a promise from Him right there. That He sees you how you are, not how you feel like you need to be. That's good stuff. Yeah.
So if I can't find these batteries, I'm just going to have to talk real loud, okay?
All right.
You good with that?
Jeremiah
Yep.
17:9.
No, I don't have them.
That's the one that's been
Blake might have ran down. So in the interim, I'm just going to talk really loud, not that I have a problem with that anyway. So here's the question of the day. Why don't we receive what God promises to us? Because remember last week we talked about how important, you might check your carry down there. Did you find it? Hold that thought. I hope they work. See, the devil is trying to get me off filter, but he doesn't do it. I don't need them. Hello? Nothing?
There you go.
There we go. Right on. Right on. All right. So here we go. Back to the question. Why don't we receive what God promises us? Here's the first thought. Our perspective gets blocked. Our perspective gets blocked. Jericho, be patient with me while I put this in my backside. No, I'm not asking you to help me, so forgive me. Jericho was the first city in the promised land that God's people had to take before they could get everything that God had promised to them as an inheritance. Why is often the first battle the hardest one?
Because you lack a little faith, maybe.
You lack faith, but why else?
Fear. Fear of the unknown.
Fear
Catches us by surprise.
catches you by surprise. Why else?
You don't want to fight.
Maybe it's not what you think. Who else said something else?
You don't want to fight.
You don't want to fight. You don't want to fight. How about this? Getting started is the hardest part.
The first step.
That first step. That first step in the battle, when you know that that battle is going to be a battle, that first step is the hard one. Joshua had waited 45 years. 45 years he waited to go into Jericho. Why? Because the generation before him, we talk about how important it is to pour into that next generation. The generation before him didn't have enough faith to do it. So he had to wait. You guys heard the children's song about Joshua?
Oh, yeah, I sung it with the kids.
Can you sing it?
Yeah, you know, Joshua fought the battle of Jericho. Jericho. Jericho.
Joshua fought the battle of Jericho, and the walls come tumbling down. Man, I told you we was going to have fun. Oh, yeah. No, I'll do that at the end. We're going to get all off track if I do that. But you know, we hear that silly song and we see somebody else's victory, and we think that the process was easy. We see the end result. We don't see what it took to get there. Now, Jericho, here's a little history. Jericho was a small city, about 8.5 acres. So 0.013 square miles. So you could walk around the city of Jericho probably in an hour or so. So it wasn't big. It wasn't big. The walls. That was the problem. There were two sets. The stone retaining wall, 12 to 15 feet high. Okay? Then on top of that wall was 20 to 26 feet high. So all total, 46 feet from the ground. Thickness, 6 foot. All the way around the city. That's a big wall. It's like a 4-story building wrapping this city up. Okay? Here's the thought. Some of the things God has called us to, it's not that they're too big, it's that our perspective gets blocked because of how high the walls are. Now, stop here and think about what walls you face. Think about what walls somebody in your life is facing. Because don't think that what we do here is just for you. Because as much as God wants to pour into you, He wants to pour into you for your growth. But He also wants to pour into you because there's somebody that needs to hear that don't know. So you kind of have to go at this with two different thought patterns. Because I know for certain, Steve and I talked about the teacher who probably, what was the latest update on him?
Tough deal.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's struggling.
Yeah. Freak bike accident. Guy's fit as fit can be. Has an accident. Probably not going to make it. Maybe. Don't know. Yeah. Okay. And then there was the death of a 2-year-old that happened. That is a friend of Dusty's. That happened. That funeral is today. So think about in your life the walls that you are staring up at, or the walls that somebody in your life is staring up at. And this is where you need to pay attention here. This is why church is so important. Because we look at walls all week long. Right? Personal life, family life, work life, life of friends, life of acquaintances. We look at walls all day. We come here and then we realize in this hour, hey, we're not alone in this. We're together. That's the beauty of what we do here, is we kind of walk this thing out together. Our perspective can be elevated to see past the wall of whatever it is that you're going through. And then you realize when your perspective changes that that enemy that you were afraid of, you realize that that enemy is afraid of you. Did y'all get that? That punk is afraid of you. So let's look at verse 1 and 2. Again, let me read it. Now Jericho was tightly shut up because of the Israelites. No one went out, no one came in. Then the Lord said to Joshua, see, I have delivered Jericho into your hands along with its king and fighting men. Does that make sense to anybody? Because when I read it, the dude ain't even fought the battle yet. Right? But God is saying, I've already given it to you. Isn't that what we struggle with all the time? Is the victory is already given to us? We don't believe in the fact that He's already paved the way to win the battle. That's how big God is. He says, see, I've already got you into tomorrow. All you got to do is get through today. But have you ever felt that what you see doesn't match what God sees?
Most of the time.
Most of the time, sure. Let's get relevant. God talks to you about victory, claiming victory in your life. You feel defeated. God talks to you about healing, whether it's physical or spiritual. You feel broken. God talks to you about having courage, but you feel afraid. God talks to you about having faith through all circumstances, but you have doubt. See how all that works? Because your revelation doesn't match your reality. What God is saying to you doesn't match what you're dealing with in your own circumstance right now, and you struggle. This is Joshua right now. This is what he's going through right now. How many have heard from God? Most all of us at some point in our life have heard something from Him. Joshua heard it, heard the promise. We hear the promise every week. But yet he still looks up and he sees that big monster wall that he feels like there's no way that he can ever get across. And then on top of it, he's got to pour into those men. He didn't tell them what God told him. He just said, go march. It's kind of like what a pastor is. I can tell you what he tells me. I can encourage. Pastors can pour into. But then it's really up to you just to go march. Remember when we talked a couple weeks ago about the importance of faith of those people that are around you and how much that matters? You remember how we talked about how your faith matters to those people around you? Because I'm telling you that those families that they're going to have to deal with and minister to and talk to, do you think that the faith of those 4 people that are sitting right there matters to those people? Yeah, because they're looking at a wall that they don't think that they're ever going to come up, be able to cross, to get over the top of. So that's the first thought. The second thought is this. Our progress isn't always obvious. Let me read verses 6 through 14 too. So Joshua, son of Nun, called the priests and said to them, take up the ark of the covenant of the Lord, and have 7 priests carry trumpets in front of it. And he ordered the people, advance, march around the city, with the armed guard going ahead of the ark of the Lord. When Joshua had spoken to the people, the 7 priests carrying the 7 trumpets before the Lord went forward, blowing their trumpets, and the ark of the Lord's covenant followed them. The armed guard marched ahead of the priests who blew the trumpets, and the rear guard followed the ark. All this time the trumpets were sounding. But Joshua had commanded the people, do not give a war cry. Do not raise your voices. Do not say a word until the day I tell you to shout. then shout. So he had the ark of the Lord carried around the city, circling it once. Then the people returned to camp and spent the night there. Joshua got up early the next morning, and the priests took up the ark of the Lord. The 7 priests carrying the 7 trumpets went forward, marching before the ark of the Lord and blowing the trumpets. The armed men went ahead of them, and the rear guard followed the ark of the Lord, while the trumpets kept sounding. So on the second day they marched around the city once, and returned to the camp, and they did this for 6 days. They were making progress, but they didn't know it. Could you imagine? Now, these were fighting men. Okay, these were warriors that were doing this. Probably all jacked up, testosterone filled, ready to fight, ready to be manly men, right? Wives sitting at home, and they go out the first day, and they're doing their thing, and they think that they're going into battle, but they don't. All they do is march around the city, and they come back home, and the wife's all excited to see them and say, "Oh, honey, tell me about your day. How many people did you kill? What'd you do? What'd you do? What'd you do?" You know, you're a warrior. You slay stuff. And then what do you have to tell her? Well, you know, we kind of just walked. She said, yeah, we stretched out, kind of got a lay of the land. You know, we just kind of looking at things. Tomorrow is the day. So you go out the next day, and what do? You walk. You walk. And not only do you walk, but Joshua tells you to keep your mouth shut. Okay? Now you probably want to walk around going, "Hey, I know we're just walking, but we're coming after you. Alright? I know you can't see me, but I'm coming." Right? So old boy comes home, and the husband's come home, and you know that they're just like, and the wife's sitting there going, "Oh, honey, tell me about your day." Well, we just kind of walked again today. And they did this for 6 days. Kept their mouth shut, and did nothing but walk around the city for 6 days without knowing what the end looked like. That's a key point. They didn't know what the end looked like. I mean, you would have thought that God being God and God saying to Joshua, "Hey, I've given you the city," he could have gave him a nugget, right? I mean, like, after the first day, maybe like 1/7 of the wall would have come down so that they could have said, "Hey, we're working on it, it's coming." And then the second day, maybe a little bit more comes down, and that would have kept them motivated to keep going. You guys feeling where I'm going? How many of us have said, in God's work, I need to see something to keep me fueled, to keep me going? Anybody?
Not out loud.
Not out loud, but in your own mind, you're like, "Hey, I got to see some kind of something, otherwise I'm probably out." Here's a side note. Look back at verse 10. But Joshua commanded the people, "Do not give a war cry, do not raise your voices, do not say a word until the day I tell you to shout, then shout." Why do you think he told them not to speak? I ask you to speak. That's what God told them.
He didn't want them to say things that they shouldn't say.
Maybe. Because Lord knows there ain't none of us that ever do that, right? Disobey God by running our mouth. Here's what I think. I think maybe when it comes to receiving what God's promised us, it's this that becomes our own worst enemy. Because we're too worried about babbling and rambling and talking about and saying and giving our opinions and things like that. We can't hear God because we're too busy running our mouth. So can I say something to you in love? Shut up.
Don't hold back.
Do I ever? Shut up. Shut up. Be quiet. Listen to what he's trying to tell you. Here's the other thing. Is Joshua never told them how long they were going to march. He knew from God what God had said. And why do you think that is? Why do you think that Joshua intentionally didn't say, hey, we're going to do this for 6 days and then on the 7th? Because I don't know how your brains work, but I read stuff like this and, I get dumb questions. Like,
Why not on the third day?
yeah,
That's right.
yeah. I mean, why didn't Joshua tell him? Oh,
Because then they probably follow it up,
yeah.
you know?
Or maybe, if he would have said, hey, we're going to do this on the 6th day and then on the 7th day, it's going to come, then all of a sudden, maybe they get this thing in their head to say, maybe it's because of what I'm doing, not what God's doing. Just a thought. Just a thought. Here's the third thing on why we don't receive His promises. Because the promise is open-ended, or the process. The process is open-ended. We give up control when we realize and accept and receive the fact that we are not in control, that God is. So in your life, and in my life, this is what we said. I got walls. I got no progress that I can see. And I got no time frame. I got walls. I got no progress. And I got no time frame. Because maybe I'm the only one in the room, but especially when it comes to this Front Porch Village thing, I want it to be done. Like yesterday. And we've been at this for 7 years. 7 years we've been doing this. Here. Well, 3 years here, 4 years at my house. 7 years. And we're just now getting to a place where we're starting to get some traction. 7 years. I got walls. I got no progress I can see. And I got no time frame. But here's the question God asks you. Will you still march? Will you still march? Easy to say in church. But when we get out there, it's a little harder. Let me tell you this. There's many people that are on lap 6 right now that don't know it. Those fighting men that went out because Joshua said to go out, because they had faith that he had heard from God, that went out and marched, they didn't quit on lap 6. How many marriages stop on lap 6? How many people give up on their families on lap 6? How many people give up on their kids on lap 6 that they don't even know? It could be tomorrow that changes it all. But in those circles, in those quiet circles, He's probably doing more in you as opposed to doing more for you. Maybe that's why we walk for 7 years begging to see something, because He had to work in Carrie and I before we could work for those that He brings to us. Think about it. How many give up on lap 6? Should you walk every lap and every step like it's lap 6? Should you? Yeah, you should. Because you're going to miss the blessing if you stop right here. It's not on your time frame. It's on His. If you believe that He has given something to you and you receive the fact that He don't break His promise, if you accept the fact that I created you, I got plans for you, and I'm not changing my mind on you. March! It don't matter how long it takes. March! Don't stop on 6. There are failed marriages that stop on 6. There are broken families that stop on 6. There are people who are dying and going to hell because their friends stopped on 6. Look, hit that video.
You gotta just sit
And watch. Just watch this.
Oh, my soul, oh, how you worry, oh, how you weary from fearing you lost control. This was the one thing you didn't see coming, and no one would blame you, though. If you cried in private, if you tried to hide it away, so no one knows, no one will see if you stop believing. Oh, my soul, you are not alone. There's a place where fear has to face the God you know. One more day, He will make a way. Let Him show you how you can lay this down. 'Cause you're not alone. Here and now, you can be honest. I won't try to promise that someday it all works out. 'Cause this is the valley, and even now He is breathing on your dry bones. And there will be dancing, there will be beauty where beauty was ash and stone. This much I know. Oh, my soul, you are not alone. There's a place where fear
Here's your word of encouragement. You are not alone. Let me read the end of that story. When the trumpets sounded, the people shouted, and at the sound of the trumpet, when the people gave a loud shout, the wall collapsed, so every man charged straight in, and they took the city. Day 7. 7's the number of perfection. It was by design, not by accident, that's how it worked. So I want you to think about the walls that you're dealing with, and you ain't alone in it. You just got to keep marching. You got to shut up so that you can hear. Because the victory has already been won. And I don't know whether I'm the only one excited about it or not, but that's okay. Because to be an overcomer, remember, Nike, it promises you a battle, but you're going to carry off the victory. Whether that's dealing with a loss, whether it's dealing with a broken family, whether you got to figure out how to minister to someone who doesn't have any hope. Because somewhere through His promise, there's hope. And sometimes maybe those people that don't have hope, instead of listening to you talk, maybe you just need to walk with them for 6 days. Huh?
Yeah.
They see that you're not going to give up, so they're not going to give up. Because His men, I can promise you that at some point they were looking around maybe day 3 and going, this is nonsense. We ain't doing nothing but wasting time walking around the city like this for an hour, and then I got to go home to my wife and explain to her that I ain't done nothing but walk. But gentlemen, she would rather know that you're walking in battle and listening to God than running your mouth and slaying the enemy. That's a hero. That's a warrior. Because at some point, those walls are going to come down. Dusty gave me this shirt a couple of years ago. You guys read that? Not all who wander are lost. This is my Joshua shirt. My Joshua shirt. Because you got to know, and everybody's in the same spot, that God speaks to you, whether it's from this group of young people all the way to this group of older people, and everybody in between. But He speaks, and He's not speaking nonsense to you. Faith going through the fire is called proved faith. March, 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 march. Because the height of that wall will block the light of the sun. But that wall will come down, and then you will see the light. Let me pray over you. And then we're going to have a little fun with a cartoon video as we leave here. It is one of my favorites. And I was so excited that I found it. But I want you to receive the fact that the victory has already been given to you. Receive it. Don't just listen to it, experience it. Know that He's not going to bring you to a place if He can't get you through the place. You don't have to have the right answers. You don't have to have the right words. You don't have to have the right scripture, either for yourself or for the family or the people that you're ministering to. Maybe all you need to do is be there. That's good, right? Father, thank you for giving us victory on battles that we have yet to face. Father, thank you for giving us victory for battles we have overcome. Father, let both be fuel for us to continue to march and to listen to you. Not just hear the words that are spoken on a Sunday morning, but to experience your living word every single day. To have faith with no end in sight, just to keep on marching. Because somebody is watching us. Somebody is watching to see how we react to situations. Father, I beg that when they see us, they see hope in us. And that hope comes from you. And we may not be able to explain all the bad things that go on in the world. But there's good somewhere. Father, we don't have to explain it. We just got to keep marching. We got to look at the wall. We can't be afraid of the wall. We just keep marching, because at some point, someday, whatever that wall is, it's going to come down, and we're going to take that city. So, Father, keep pressing into us. Father, if there's a wall that is separating us from you, let that wall fall. Let salvation come. Let us rejoice in the fact that the enemy doesn't get one of your children. And it's as easy and simple as saying, Father, I accept what you have done for me. I receive it. And then we let you do the rest. Father, thank you for teaching us truth. Lap 6. Don't stop.